record on this.
Okay, there it goes.
Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be talking about different strategies to lead with ethics and integrity through 3 different strategies. So our first strategy is to promote a school culture that is rooted in high expectations, inclusivity, and ethics is to have a place-based model. So a place-based model connects academic standards with engaging in the surrounding communities. Therefore, learning is not necessarily confined to the classroom, but instead the community becomes the new classroom where students learn and engage with real life experiences. So this ultimately reimagines a Western education model that oftentimes is not always the best fit for many students. So a place-based learning model also inspires students to be active participants in their prospective communities and inspires them to create social and environmental change. So they are able to recognize the importance of caring for their community and find their rightful place in that community. So students also are able to exhibit values of empathy and understanding through this process. There are many benefits to place-based learning, including students getting a hands-on experience, which keeps them engaged, gives them agency on how they want their education experience to be and look like, and ultimately helps them find passion in their education. And a place-based education is inclusive to all learners as it caters to how students view their strengths and how they use their strengths rather than just focusing on a student's ability. So this really does center the student and their needs and how they learn. It also holds high expectation for students because a place-based education empowers students to think critically and ask important questions about their communities. So, for example, students could ask questions that show concern about the standing of our environment and global warming, and they can start to think about solutions. A place-based education promotes an equitable learning environment where students' perspectives and identities are valued, seen, and heard. And then lastly, a place-based education builds community within the classroom and the surrounding communities. So some examples of a place-based education can include maple tapping, foraging, growing a school community garden, and volunteering and visiting at local farms and businesses. So these examples connect important academic standards with values of respect, reciprocity, responsibility, and culture. And students have the opportunity to engage in a diverse set of experiences while also learning from different community members that connect to their schooling. I believe that the PI domain that connects most to this model is the civic PI domain. So a place-based learning promotes an education that's inclusive to students' learning needs. Not only is it engaging them, but there are opportunities to engage and incorporate students' identities, cultures, and backgrounds into the learning experience. And this can promote empathy among students because they learn from one another and unite together to always take care of each other in the communities they come from. And then a place-based learning rejects a one-size-fits-all learning model and instead fits to the student's needs, kind of like how I said before. So students have the opportunities to have hands-on learning experiences and the ability to learn beyond their classrooms and their textbooks. So lastly, in a place-based learning model, multiple perspectives are honored and learned from. Another PI domain that fits with place-based learning is performance. So this requires the collaboration between staff and the community to plan experiences, and then also promotes a creative way of learning. In all, a place-based learning model exhibits ethical leadership because it centers an education that prioritizes the well-being and learning outcomes of all students. It fights beyond what a traditional classroom looks like and inspires not only students, but also educators.
Okay. We also chose strategy two, which is restorative conversation instead of punishment. And the way that works is it's just a facilitated structure, solution focused, and having conversations after some sort of conflict or misbehavior or moments of disconnection. These conversations invite students to reflect on their choices and understand how they impact others, and work together to repair harm. Why this works. Restorative practices shift the focus from rule breaking to building relationships. And I think it also um, is a power shift. It takes away the power struggle of one person has the power over another, and it builds an equal footing and equal playing ground for the students and the disciplinarian per se. Research shows that they help students develop empathy. They start to understand how their choices matter and how they impact others. It also makes them take responsibility for the choices that they're making. And maybe they didn't realize that what they were doing was not okay or not favorable behavior because of maybe their home environment or the way they are raised. And then it allows them to see what how their behavior is impacting those around them and themselves. So they take ownership for the choices they're making. It also helps build conflict and resolution skills. I feel like today a lot of our kids don't know how to cope with things that don't go their way, and so this brings in dialogue and conversation for them to work through the conflicts that they're having, and not just, no, you can't do that. They get to understand why and how they could work through problems that they have, which would lead to being adults who know how to handle conflict and talk through situations. It also fosters a sense of community, and establishing expectations and classroom norms together allows them to build this community in their school, their classroom, and hopefully in the world around them. It also all these together will help reduce the repeated incidents and promote a positive school climate. I think there are times where kids act out because they need the attention or they want someone to notice them. And this opens up a conversation and helps you build a relationship with a student instead of just, no, this is your punishment. It actually gives them a time to voice. It gives our student a voice, and have some control in the choices that they make, and that the school would make with them. Some examples: this would be a high school hallway altercation after a minor physical altercation between two students. Assistant principal would facilitate a circle with the students, a counselor, a peer mediator. Students discuss the underlying stressor, because most of the time we realize when kids are acting out, there is more to it than what we see. It's always deeper than what we're seeing. And so this gives the students a community of people around them. They create a joint agreement. They stay separated, cool down, and then when the emotions have calmed, they have adult support and they can check in weekly. This is, for me, great on several different levels because we're building trust with our students. We are opening the doors for communication, and we are putting us on a more level playing ground. Um, then say the outcome is no further incident. One student later joins a peer leadership group focused on conflict solutions. And so I love this example because it takes this conflict, works through it, and now this person gets to be a peer mentor or leader in our school for others who may need that. Um, Another example would be a middle school classroom. Two students argue loudly during a group project. They're disrupting the class. Instead of issuing detentions, the teacher held a 10-minute restorative conversation. what happened. Students explain the miscommunication about roles. How did it impact other? They acknowledge disrupting peers and creating tension. And what do you need to repair the harm? They agree to redistribute tasks, apologize to the group, and create norms for future collaboration. And the outcome would be group productivity is improved. Both students report feeling more respected and understood. And so I think these type of situations are exactly what we're wanting our students to learn, to be able to go out into the real world, to be able to work with others, um, to be able to communicate. I think a lot of conflicts are due to miscommunication, especially when you're dealing with um, teenagers. And so it brings them back to their conversation. Um, they get to respect and be heard. And so I think that's what a lot of this goes back to is respect. You give respect, you get respect. And these kids get to see that we are all here to help build them to be true leaders in society. Um, okay, so the PI domains that are addressed would be morals. Students reflect on the ethical implications of their choices and develop personal responsibility. They're realizing what part they played in it. And then the civic students consider well-being of the large community and the strengths they share for norms and accountability. And so when they do go out into society, now they have a better understanding of how conflicts work and how to work through those. And then in these situations, the PI assets that are activated would be empathy, understanding how actions affect others emotionally and socially. I find that I teach high school and one middle school class. I find my high schoolers, they sort of lack that empathy for others because they are such a technology driven society. They don't have to talk to each other. They can text each other. They don't ever have to confront things head on, and they don't know how to do that. And so I feel in this situation, they actually have to listen to each other and acknowledge the situation and the differences. And so building empathy, I think, is so important. Compassion, motivating students to repair harm in a supportive, humane way. Um, being able to have them together and understand that we all do think differently and we all come from different backgrounds and situations, but we all have to have compassion. And it's important to, if you can repair these, for us to do it in a humane, civilized way. And then collaboration, working with others to solve conflicts and build relationships. Um, Again, I think just kids learning how to work together. A lot of these kids grew up when we were in COVID, and so they did a lot on their own. And so we're having to work through some of that, of them being able to work and solve problems together. And so that just helps build relationships. I felt like these were both strategies that lead with ethics and integrity. We're building integrity in our students to have some power and control over the choices that they make daily, and then realizing that there are consequences for their actions, but those consequences need to be clearly understood, and the best way to do that is through communication and dialogue. So, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Final strategy that we came up addressing the chronic absenteeism that has risen since the COVID pandemic. Since the COVID pandemic, it's shown that nationwide, the amount and percentage of chronic absenteeism in schools has almost doubled, sometimes tripled in different states. And it does not take a lot of study or a lot of research, even though research has been done to show that whenever kids are not in school, they are not living up to the performance expectations that have been put on them, and it is really costing them not only them being able to do well post uh, post-school, but also their emotional well-being as well. And so the issue truly is trying to address the chronic absenteeism. And two ways we can go about that is one, by creating incentive programs for the students. And then the other way is identifying and trying to mitigate any possible issues that are keeping kids from coming to school. The benefits of all of these are whenever kids are in school, in class, there's less educational gaps. There are kids that are more caught up with their grade level. There requires less remediation tactics, allowing more flexibility for our resources and assets like teacher scheduling and paraprofessional scheduling as well. This reduces the likelihood of students dropping out in the future. So starting this early, getting kids to come to school, making this a something that is ingrained in them and addressed frequently and early on, it prevents the likelihood of students dropping out. Um, this also helps their social emotional well-being. Kids that are not coming to school are typically feeling less connected with their community inside of the school, and this creates some issues regarding their sense of identity and their sense of belonging in the community, and increases the likelihood of them isolating in the future. And then lastly, this goes for the district-wide, but it does improve the health of the district budget whenever you are tackling chronic absenteeism, trying to get kids into the school, as the less students that are here every day, the less funding is given to the school. And so by creating initiatives to try to get kids in school, you have a lot more room in the budget to be able to provide for them on the back end. Some strategies that we came up with are first the incentives. Kids very much like to be known and like to receive things and be recognized for the amount of effort that they're doing. And some ways that we can go about this are giving class specific rewards. In Texas, I know that second period of every single day is whenever the snapshot of our class attendance is taken. And so by addressing this and utilizing second period attendance, we can see both who is here, who is not, and then being able to gather data through that. But by encouraging kids to be here, you also give the second period a specific reward. So the highest attendance percentages that are given throughout the 6 weeks, each class that has the highest, uh, I would say top five highest percentages of attendance for that 6 weeks will get a reward at the end of the 6 weeks. The same goes for the grade levels themselves. I teach in the middle school, so sixth, seventh, and eighth would each have a competition, kind of like a tournament bracket, and the grade that gets the highest overall attendance rate throughout the 6 weeks could also receive some kind of special incentive, like being allowed a free day or being allowed some kind of advantage in like a fun day in the future, things along that nature. Um, Random drawings for individual students and teachers that are here every day of the 6 weeks as well, allowing for more individualized incentives. And then lastly, recognizing students that are here throughout an entire week, giving them shout outs through social media or through announcements, things along those lines, maybe a gift card that goes along with it. Just different incentives that would make kids want to be in school, because if they're not, they're going to miss out on the things that everybody else is getting. Um, the second strategy would be to mitigate and try to prevent any issues of absenteeism. So one way we can go about that is if a child is absent, has an unexcused absence for more than a day at a time. If they are have an absence that is unexcused for multiple days at a time, we will call home to the parents and try to see what the issue is, how we can better serve them, how we can better help the parents be able to get their kids to school, whether it be by providing transportation, providing any kind of alternate transportation, or just what can be done on our end at school. The second would be to take our attendance reports and try to analyze and spot any trends or patterns that are happening within either groups of kids or individuals themselves, and see where the likelihood is of kids being absent on what days, at what times. And then lastly, we would try to identify potential issues in the community that could also prevent kids from going to school. And this can be done through a specific role, somebody given a specific role in the district that goes and tries to do community outreach, tries to gather a census of what the struggles are with on the school's end of trying to get kids to school, whether that be the transportation office itself or struggles that parents are going through, whether it be they do not have time to be able to get their kid to school or make sure that they get on the bus, things along those lines, and then coming up with solutions to be able to address those. And then lastly, creating services and mentorship programs in the school that offer incentive for kids to come to school, as a lot of kids do not have much structure whenever they go to home or are at home, and it is easier for them to just stay home rather than coming to school and doing things that possibly they aren't enjoying. But if they are having services and programs given to them whenever they do come to school, it would increase the likelihood of them coming to school and enjoying school because it is providing something other than just the educational aspect, providing a communal aspect and a mentorship aspect. And so how these are connected to principled innovation. The first is through the civic pathway, just by creating more of a community-centered and well-being centered approach to trying to get kids into the classroom and zooming out to try to figure out the root causes rather than just what is going on day to day would help these kids come together, feel included, and feel a part of an overall community rather than they're just a number to the school. The intellectual side would be for trying to, again, identifying the root causes of what is causing these chronic absenteeism, and then gaining a plan to better prevent this. And then lastly would be the performance of working collaboratively with the staff and utilizing their experience, their efforts to be able to fix issues that we are seeing, as well as creating different approaches to create these different programs that either incentivize or mitigate the chronic absenteeism issue. And the last is just our works cited page from where we got our information.